It's day 5, Christmas Eve, and before you set goals or New Year's resolutions for 2025, I want to walk you through some of the models that I've learned from super smart people that avoid all the goal setting mistakes, and then walk you through an example of how this will work in your business or your life in general. If you're new here, I'm Craig Dew, and 0 to 1 million follows the business growth of Rev Levers and the Shopify stores that we help through education-based branding. Now, let's get into it. I want to start with a framework of how we're going to apply all this. So this is from the book Good Strategy, Bad Strategy by Richard Ramelt. And it basically, he talks about strategy in terms of if you're just setting your goals by picking a random number, pie out of the sky of like, I want to make $1 million next year. And you have no backing on how to do that and no actual plan. And even if you do have the plan, it's usually a very bad way to do things. And so what he talks about is approaching strategy from a different way. And he calls this the kernel of strategy, and it has 3 bits to it. So the first bit is the diagnosis. So identifying what the problem is that you are facing in your business. Also, you could call it a constraint, as I probably will throughout the video as well. 2 is having the guiding principle or guiding policy of how you're going to overcome that obstacle. And then 3 is a set of coherent actions that you're actually going to deploy in your business or in your life. And so this ties nicely to Atomic Habits as well by James Clear. If you've read that book, if you haven't read it, highly recommend that as well. It reframed everything I thought about. I never liked goal setting and the whole SMART goal setting, like SMART thing. Never really worked for me, and I found I'd pick random goals and never really hit them in the time frame and all this stuff. So when I read that book, it was a bit of a revelation in terms of we change our actions that we take because that's what achieves the actual goal. Don't worry about what the goal is. So it's more about setting a direction and then building habits to achieve it. And so this all kind of ties together nicely. And let's talk about some models now for the diagnosis part, because it's like, oh yeah, I've got a problem to overcome or a constraint in my business. How do I actually identify that? So I've got 2 models there that I use. The first one is asking the question, what's stopping me from 10xing my business or doing whatever I'm doing 10 times better, right? And so this comes from Dan Sullivan, strategic coach, and he has a whole book, 10x is better than 2x. That talks about this concept. And so it's trying to reframe your thinking to think bigger than you are at the moment, because a lot of us focus on incremental gains of if I just do this a little bit better, rather than if I make this big leap, I'm going to make a massive jump forward in what I'm doing. And so there's no problem with incremental gains either. So I don't want this to be the only model that you use of like, oh, what's the big moonshot that I'm going to take to get to the next level? But it is a useful framework when you're feeling stuck or you're just kind of going through the motions. I think a lot of business is really grinding out those incremental improvements and making the most of them. But sometimes often there's a 10x unlock that's sitting there that you haven't thought about. For example, you could decide you want to promote your business, and I'm going to do search engine optimization or run ads and do all this normal stuff that other people do. But then some people go and write a book. So if you write a book, and so we just talked about like Atomic Habits. So James Clear is now a very popular person in terms of like habits and against goal setting, I guess, but how to set habits and that kind of thing. So he started with a blog, he built a following there, launched the book, it went to whatever New York bestseller, sold maybe 1 million copies, could be making that up. So he really launched himself and became an expert in the space through that book. So that was something where doing more and more blog posts might have got him there incrementally, but writing the book and having that referred by so many people to like friends and family and colleagues and stuff like that really gave him a 10x leap on where he was. So it's those kind of things. And I'm not saying like where I am at the moment, like we're talking 0 to 1 million and we're at 0. So we're starting off day 5. We're not going to go, oh, let's aim for this big 10x thing that might take like 6 months or a year to write a book. We want to be smart in what we choose. And so the next framework we'll talk about is from Charlie Munger. So he calls this inversion thinking. And if you watch any of his videos, so Charlie Munger is the business partner of Warren Buffett. He passed away last year in November, just shy of his 100th birthday, unfortunately. but very smart guy and always worth listening to the way he thinks. So he talks about inversion theory that he got from a mathematician. And when you're facing a problem, if you're like, oh, how do I grow my business 10x? There's all these different opportunities. It's like, wow, I could write a book, or I could start a TV show, or I could like partner up with Dwayne "The Rock" Johnson. And there's unlimited opportunities to go 10x often. So he talks about what would you have to do in order to kill your business, and then don't do that. And so his famous saying around it is like, obviously didn't work for him because he passed away, but find out where he's going to die and just never go there. And so if your business is going to collapse because of, you're going to like lose your business because of a few key reasons. And often we're focused on doing a million things rather than trying to do a few key things. And we'll talk about that as we get into the constraints that we're facing. But obviously, like if you can't get customers, your business isn't going to go well. If you can't keep customers, your business isn't going to go well. So how do you focus on those small things that would absolutely kill your business? Like if you wanted to kill your business, you would just never market or never try to sell anything, and that wouldn't work. So that obviously shows us that that's important in your business growth, and you can apply the same thing to other things in your life as well. So a third one that I'll add in for myself is kind of something I've been thinking about a lot lately in the last year or something, last couple of years. So a business only grows as big as its leader. And so we hit a ceiling because of us normally. The leader of the business, you might have a leadership team, but like whether it's a CEO position or a group of people, like you're gonna hit a ceiling because of those people, or the one person, which is usually yourself, especially to the people that I'm probably talking to in this video. So there's some obvious barriers that we face in terms of like time. We don't have enough time. No one feels that they have enough time. So how do you use your time more effectively to work on the things that are most important, the biggest constraints in your business, and stop mucking around with all the other nice to have things that feel cool in the moment, or you might think is a 10x opportunity, but is really just mucking around. And so time is a big thing, and being effective in it. And then money is obviously a big constraint as well. It's like, oh yeah, if I had $10 million, I could just launch everything I wanted and it would be super successful, which is, I think, wrong. Like you see massive companies with billions of dollars literally launch products that fail all the time. So whether money is that big a constraint is an interesting thing as well. But what I would really boil that down to is a lack of skills. And so people talk about, oh, you've got, like I've heard Alex Hormozy talk about, you have a framework, you've got to have beliefs and characteristics and skills, and all of those together. I kind of lump them all into skills, because skills are like obviously the real obvious definition of what you actually do. So do you have a skill of running Facebook ads or setting up a Shopify store, writing an email, that kind of thing, right? But if you think about characteristics, it's also kind of a skill. So a characteristic, you might say, oh, I'm not confident. And so I would define confidence as a skill. So we literally had an intern that came into one of the offices of the client that I lost to work with us, and she was terrified of public speaking and had a very quiet voice. She couldn't even really talk in any kind of group or one-on-one. It was very quiet. And so we built the skill of her being able to public speak and like her goodbye morning tea thing by having her sit down and say, okay, let's get something that you are 100% confident on being able to say, like, hi, this is my name and this is what I like, or something like that. And then we had her sit down and we do it, and then we had her raise her voice, and then we had her stand up in that, like push back the chair from the table and stand up there. Then we had her move to the front of the room and talk. And so it was trying to break down that skill. And so when she had practiced that enough and she knew what to actually practice, she then had the character trait of becoming confident in that specific situation, because that had been trained as a skill. And obviously you go into a different location, you don't have that skill necessarily. So I teach Kung Fu like twice a week at least. And so talking in front of a group of like 30 to 40 kids or 20 adults or that kind of thing is very easy to me. You put me in front of an audience of 10,000 people, that's going to be more nerve-wracking because it's different. I could do it for 40, 50 people in a room nice and easily. And it's not that I don't have the skill of being able to talk, it's that the dynamic of the situation has changed completely. And so you can train in different areas and then build those skills up so you get used to it, and then 10,000 people doesn't become such a big deal, and then move on to 100,000 or 1,000,000 or whatever it may be. But it's literally just building up skills. So if you define any character trait, like it's just a skill, I believe. And then we've got beliefs as well. And so I believe that belief is very important in business. If you're kind of limited in how much money you think you can earn or how much money's out there, like financially, or that you have a belief that you're lazy or those kind of things, then that's really going to hold back your business, or that you don't keep promises to yourself, whatever it may be. But again, that becomes a skill that you can teach yourself. So if you feel like you're lazy, you can just build better habits to become not lazy in specific areas. So if you build a habit of filming a video every day, you might be lazy in other areas, but that skill, you've developed that skill, and then you have a belief that, oh, I'm not lazy when it comes to filming videos and ranting to people on the internet for a long period of time every day. So you can build those skills. And again, a belief around money. Like, of course you don't believe that you can like go out and make $1 million tomorrow because you haven't done it yet. But you can probably go out and make $1 if you've done that before, or $10 or $100, depending on what your skill level is at the current time. And so we're just trying to layer these skills upon the current ones we have to get to the next step. We don't have to have all the skills in one go. Like if you just went, oh, I'll have all the skills that a billionaire has, then you'd become a billionaire very quickly. But life doesn't work like that. And so it takes time to acquire skills, funnily enough. And so we need to take the time to do that. And so as we go through and think about constraints in the business and that kind of thing, it's like, oh, if I wrote a book, I'd create a bigger business. You've got to think, well, I need a skill of writing a book, and then I've got to write a book, and then skill of editing a book, and then skill of publishing a book. And so there's a whole bunch of skills in there. And then the belief to actually hit publish is a skill to be brave enough to put yourself out there and everyone think you're an idiot on the internet. So that's a skill as well. Making videos and not feeling like not caring that everyone thinks you're a dumbass. That's fun times. So now let's move on. That's the kind of diagnosis part of things. And I'll show you more. I'll talk about some examples as we walk through how we're going to grow our business to really kind of bring this home, and then you can apply this kind of theory of constraints to your own. So then I'll just talk about the guiding policy part of it and the actions as well, because once you identify what the problem is, or the challenge, the constraint that you need to overcome, is basically then you set a hypothesis. So in science, we have a hypothesis where we go, we believe that if we do this, we will get this result. I believe that if I film a video and I put it on the internet, some people may watch it. If some people may watch it, eventually this might help me get clients in the business at some point. It might take 5 years, it might take 10 years. It's a long-term hypothesis for this, but it's a hypothesis. And then we're going to test that, and we're going to put videos up, and we're going to see if it actually works, and adjust as we go. So we're always learning in what we're doing and trying to improve it. And so whole strategy framework, just to recap: the good strategy, bad strategy, the kernel of strategy. So your diagnosis, what's your constraint that you've got to overcome? What's your guiding policy that's heading you in the right direction? Like making content would be a guiding policy in terms of, I think this will overcome the problem of not having clients. And then the coherent actions would be literally filming the video every day and putting it on the internet so people can see and be amazed by the wonderful talky talk. So now let's bring this home to business. And so there's 3 areas of business in a main way. So I use this from the EOS model, so the entrepreneurial operating system, but it's kind of commonly known and talked about. I hadn't thought about it till they said it, and it was great. So you have your sales and marketing department, You have your operations department that handles delivery, so they make the products or they deliver the services. And you have your finance department, which makes sure that you don't run out of money. And under the finance department, you probably have HR and IT, those kind of things, and maybe eventually they'll split out into other functions in your business as you get bigger. But for now, let's just think we've got 3 functions in our business: sales and marketing, and we're going to group them together because if you're running a Shopify store, it's kind of the same thing. If you're doing a service-based business like ours, you could consider marketing to be getting the leads and sales, selling the leads, but I'm going to lump them all together anyway because I don't think it needs to be that complicated. Operations, delivering the work, so doing the services that we do for clients, or delivering your product, getting it out through your Shopify store, and then the finance side so you don't run out of money. And so if you think about the constraint, we're talking about going from 0 to 1 million. So the first constraint is the kind of obvious one. You could balance it 2 ways, but the first one I would say is getting the first client. So we're starting from 0 here. We need to get the first client. So that's a sales and marketing constraint. And so in that, you can break down what skills we need in order to do it. And I'm going to do that in a future video because this will get really long if I go into it here. But you think about, we need to identify our ideal customer. We need to get a message that's going to appeal to that ideal customer. And then we've got to distribute through media that message. And so whether you're emailing people or running ads or making content, whatever, distributing the message. All right. So then once we get over that constraint of getting the first client, and there's obviously a sales process, and for us it's talking to people on a Shopify store, it's them clicking the buy button and getting it delivered, then it passes to an operations constraint. So that's the delivery side of things. So in our business, we've got to, once we get a new client and they say, yes, I want to work with you, this is amazing, or sounds amazing, then we have onboarding. So we've got to bring the person into our business. So we have various documents that we send out. It's like, we need these logins and that kind of thing so we can start doing stuff for you, and questionnaires and like discovering more about their business and doing our own market research. That's the onboarding process. For us in delivery, we're doing things like email marketing, so setting up flows or sending out email campaigns in Klaviyo and things like that. Shopify conversion rate, so improving product pages to get that conversion rate up, and then driving traffic, so that could be content like social media, blogs, paid ads, those the different ways that we can get more traffic to the site once we get the site making more money. And so that's our delivery. And then another part of delivery that not a lot of people focus on enough is retention as well. I've got again some upcoming videos that I'll talk more deeply about this because it's a long ramble or rant, not even a rant, but being in this industry, doing things for 25 years, you start thinking about, well, why do customers actually say? You think for like a marketing agency, it's going to be all about results, but it really isn't about results all of the time, and even most of the times, like, it's real weird. So that'll be a different video, we'll get there. So we've got our first constraint handled, we got a client. Second constraint was to deliver to that client. So now we've handled that. So we're moving on to our third constraint. So we got one client, we delivered. Now we need to get more clients and deliver. So we're basically just going to iterate through that process. So make sure that getting the first client wasn't lucky. It was a repeatable process. And in the early days, it doesn't need to be that repeatable, but you should vaguely know what you're doing. If you get all your clients from talking to some auntie who's like recommends people to you, then you might only get clients that know you personally already. You need to branch out into people that don't know you and make sure you have a system for that. And so sales and marketing process and an operations process for the delivery, you want to make sure that you combine those two things and have a vague idea by the time you get to 4 clients what you're doing time and time again. So you're not winging it completely, because this is where people get stuck and they find that they can't scale. And so, and we're not worried about scaling yet, but we want to think in terms of building a business, not becoming self-employed. Because if you just build a business that is all about you and you doing the delivery, and you never do anything with a process, so you can't train anyone else to do it, you're going to be stuck in this hamster wheel of get the clients, deliver the clients to the clients, get the clients, deliver to the clients, and you get on the hamster wheel and you can never really get past certain levels, which definitely I've hit at different times. I've scaled past it with building a team. I freaked out because the team didn't do as well in some areas that I'd wished. Some people were really great, some people weren't, so I freaked out and went, I'll just do it all myself, and ruined my whole business, and went back to being self-employed, which has got me to this point now. That's probably another story as well. So let's move on. Then we've got to think about what's the fourth constraint in the business. So for us, it'll be time to deliver. So once we get those 4 clients, I've got Mohammed who works for me, so got a full-time employee already. So imagine it takes him 1 day for our marketing, for him to do that, and then a day each for each of for the client delivery that we need to do. So once he's doing 4 clients of client delivery and I'm overlooking it and working with him on it, we're gonna run into how do we service the 5th client without just decreasing the time that we're working with everyone. So that's going to be a constraint that we need to overcome. So that becomes a finance constraint. And so we need to make sure that we've got cash flow so we can hire another person. So if you plan out your business and you're like, oh yeah, I'm just making this little bit of money, but then you can't hire the next full-time employee or the next contractor or whatever you need to do to get to deliver to more people, then you're going to hit that constraint, and then you need to overcome that. You might have to overcome it because pricing is the problem, or because you need to work more efficiently, and there's various different ways you can do that. But it's going to be a constraint in terms of delivery. It's the same in a Shopify store if you're delivering a whole bunch of products. If you cost you 20 grand to buy in all the stock, and then you've got to sell that stock, and then you've got to have enough money to buy the next 20 grand of stock. And hopefully as you go, you'll get better efficiency because you can buy 50 grand the next time, maybe not the next time, but build up how much you're buying and get it at a cheaper price from your manufacturer. Those kind of things come into it. So you're going to have delivery constraints that you want to make more efficient throughout the time too. So then we'd move on to constraint number 5, and I'll wrap up here because it will get very long otherwise. But basically that would be training a new person for us. And so we've got the finance, we can hiring a new person. So now we need to train that person to be able to deliver to the same standard that Mohammed would be delivering to. And so that's where the processes and things come into. So we make sure that we're delivering at a high standard. We've got processes ready. Those processes are going to improve and get better over time, but at least we've got something. If you don't have anything written down or any process, then everyone's just winging it, and you rely on hiring people who can already do what you want them to do. Been through that as well. Versus saying this is our process and this is how it works, and if you do this, we get this result, and we're confident on that. We know how to write our email campaigns. We have formulas for writing the emails, for setting up our automated flows, what each email should be doing, how to write the headlines, those kind of things. All of those are steps and processes. So then we don't have to go out and hire someone who's great at writing emails instantly or does them completely different, and then we have a different client experience for everyone. So a lot of those processes and stuff are baked into it. So to kind of wrap up, basically that gives you some examples of the constraints in the business, what you're trying to think about, where you are and what you need to overcome next. You've got the model of, so the good strategy, bad strategy, kernel of strategy part. So you've got diagnose what the problem is, the guiding policy that you need to enact to get through that, and then the coherent actions that support the policy, so your resources aren't competing in all kinds of different directions. It's like, this is where we're going, this is what we're going to do to overcome that problem, because that's the biggest problem in our business right now. And then we talked about some models, so like how to 10x your business from Dan Sullivan, inversion thinking from Charlie Munger, so you can figure out how to diagnose those problems and then set yourself a course of action to overcome it as well. Hopefully that has helped. That's it for day 5, and I'll see you tomorrow. Thanks.